All right, Mary, that's noted. Good afternoon to you. Good day, everyone, and all of you. Welcome to today's Sunday lecture series. We have been studying a number of lessons from scriptures and about our imagination in the last couple of weeks. The focus has been God's perfect image, but then we've been looking at everything that narrates or relates to that, including God's perfect name, which blessed took us, God's perfect wisdom. Today, we want to talk about God's perfect body. We've talked about God's perfect word also, just in case you would like to know we've discussed in the series. So today we're discussing God's perfect body. This is a very important lesson, which if you understand it, you would be able to see the Bible, the scriptures in a new light. You would be able to appreciate, especially the contents of the New Testament. Okay, God's perfect body. But of course, the idea of God's perfect body is eternal, just like every idea of God is eternal. We learn from scriptures that He has prepared the whole thing from the foundations of the world. It's not an afterthought. The whole creation, the universe, humanity, existence, life, all that we see now was not God's afterthought. It is all a part of a plan, a grand plan which started even before the foundations of the world, we were told. So, God's perfect body has been an eternal idea, and you could say it is also the destination, the aim of God, or what He takes away. And by extension, since we all are God, what each one of us takes away from the drama, from the play right now, is the perfect body. What God is to take away as His perfect body is a body that contains all members, each one of us, and that contains us individually, functioning independently, and at the same time, all together making up the one Father who is above all, in all, and through you all. Now, let us look into the scriptures to see what God's perfect body is and what we are to do with the knowledge or with the understanding that we get. But before we read what we have on the screen here, let me open to a passage for us and read this out. This is the book of Ephesians, chapter 4. And the book of Ephesians and Colossians are very heavy on the nature, the divine nature of God's body. But chapter 4, from verse 1, it starts, I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called. I want you to take note of the word calling, okay? With all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit. So it brought the two together, body and spirit. It put the two first, okay? So we could identify, because normally the natural way we would think about this is my physical body and my spirit in my body. But the word body doesn't mean my physical body, as we would find in this class. However, there is one body and one spirit. Be aware of that. Take note of that. And then look into your own life. Look into your own personal reflections of all that you understand this world to be. You always understand everything, always have a view of everything from a single viewpoint. Or maybe the better approach, the better word would be that there is a single viewer in your world. A single viewer, that is just one person who sees the thing. Okay? I don't care what you might be looking at. You might be looking at the whole universe. Maybe you have a telescope and so you put it down, you're using your eyes to perceive the wonders of the farthest galaxy, and the farthest star from Earth, you still be looking at the whole thing from a single viewer. And it is this viewer that has to be aware of what is being seen. And the awareness is not something that is done in the flesh, it is something that is done in man's spirit. And how do we know that for sure? For man can be aware of that which he has never perceived by his body. And there is no natural religion. Blake said, if all that man can perceive is all that he has seen, that is the ratio of all that he has perceived before, then he cannot expand beyond what he is. But man expands beyond the ratio of what is known, so that all that he shall know is still more than all that he has known. That is true for all of us. And that could only mean one thing. That could only mean that there is a spirit in man. And this passage says it is one spirit. Just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. Now you might hear that and you might think that you are the one being asked to maintain the unity of the body and spirit, and not realize that you are the one spirit that is being referred to. And I'm going to show you in this lesson that you are the one spirit that is being referred to, and that the body that is referred to there is your own body. It is the one and only body in the world. It's the body you carry around, and it's not the body that you are listening to me in right now, the one that has the ears that you used to hear. No, there's another body in you that hears what I'm saying, but not exactly as I say it. You hear it from how you suppose I am saying it. That's the body. That body has ears, you could hear. It has mouth, you could speak, you could utter words. You hear me right now, and then you also say one or two things about it in your mind, such as, I hope he gets to the root of these things because he's promised so many things that he's going to say or show me right now. Or such as, what is he even trying to say here? Can I understand the head or the root? Or such as, oh, he's come with the Bible again. Or such as, oh, fantastic, I'm going to learn more from the scriptures today. But there's that body in you. It has a mouth. You never utter the word. You never moved your lips. But it's a saying, and you could hear it clearly. And it's a seeing, and you could perceive clearly with what it sees. Now, this body is what in the New Testament is referred to as the Church of God. Let's just look at these two passages here. This is one from Colossians 1, verse 17 to 19, and it says what? It says, He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything He might be preeminent. For in Him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. Who's being talked about here? Christ. That's who's being talked about here. Jesus Christ. And it says, He is before all things. Take note of that. And in Him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. I wonder how anyone could think that could really read this passage and think that this Jesus we're speaking of was born some 2,000 years ago, when it says here that He is before, that is, He antedated all things. That is, before all things are, He existed. Okay, antedated, meaning it came first and before all. And in Him, all things work together. Okay, now, so all things are in Him. Was He born unto a woman at some point in time? Just one single man? No, because all things are in Him. And all things hold together in Him. Now, He is the head of the body. And what is the body? The church. He is the beginning and is the firstborn from the dead. Oh, but if you take it to be literal, the entire thing, the whole of the Bible, and you claim that he is the firstborn of the dead, all right. But then at the same time, you have actually read Elijah waking the dead. You've read Lazarus himself was the dead who rose before he rose. If you take the whole thing chronologically, if you take the whole thing to be historical, and he's called to be the firstborn of the dead, how could that be? Well, it is not historical. It is not literal. It's not a chronology. It's a mystery. And we'll find that it is a mystery in the same lesson. But it's a mystery. Ephesians chapter 3. Let's see. If you do have your Bible with you, you can open with me as I, uh, mention or quote these passages that are out of what I've referenced here. But you come to the book of Ephesians 3, and you start from verse 3, and it says, how the mystery was made known to me by revelation. As I have written briefly, I have two questions for everyone here, and I want you to ponder on them really deeply. Don't just take it superfluously, okay? But really ponder on them and the meaning of the questions to what you think or understand the whole Bible to be. Now, this is a writer of the books of the Bible, one of the writers of the books. And he's saying that a mystery was made known unto him in a revelation, as he has written. Is that not what it says? 3 verse 3. How the mystery was made known to me by revelation, as I have written briefly. So he's written it, but what he's written is not anything other than a mystery. And this mystery was not made known to him by any study, by any human knowledge, by any physical witness of it, but by revelation. So the questions are this, the two questions. The first is, can a mystery be the same thing as a history? That's the first question. And the second question is this, the methods of receiving knowledge, which is called revelation, can it be used to describe historical events? Or when revelations are written, this is another way to phrase the second question. When revelations are written, are they describing historical events? Are they bound to chronology? Are they bound to historical events of the world? I want you to ponder on those two questions. So these make up what he is writing about the church and about the body, about Christ. Then he carries on. When you read this, you can perceive my insight into the mystery of Christ. So, what is the purpose of what we read of scriptures? To perceive insight into the historical facts of the nation of Israel, of a certain nation in the world, of a certain people, of some historical facts of some early group of people who were meeting together. It said, so that you might be have insight, you can perceive my insight into the mystery of Christ, which was not made known to the sons of men in other generations, as it has now been revealed to his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit. And this is the mystery is that the Gentiles are fellow heirs, members of the same body, and partakers of the promise in Christ Jesus through the gospel. So the mystery is the gospel, or the mystery is about Christ Jesus. We are given the knowledge of the mystery. And so you can't expect the whole thing to be a natural order. It's a mystery. And part of the mystery is this. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning. So I can't be understanding this literally if I really want to understand it. And I can't understand this historically. So it's not talking about a church that was, that was founded some hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. And that is the head of this church of people who are meeting, but they do that every day, they do that every Sunday. And that's all right. But that's what he's talking about at all. Because it's not talking about a social code or a religious code. He's talking about a mystery. And we have the second one here, and it says, and has put all things under his feet, and made him head over all things for the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all. And maybe a little talk about the word fullness to understand what is fullness in both passages. The idea of the fullness of him, which is all in all, or for him, for in him, all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, literally means this, that in the flesh he is contained. And in being contained in the flesh, it contains all of divine nature and all of human nature. Do we understand that? That's the idea. It contains all of divine nature and all of human nature. You can look at Colossians 1 and read it further down, and you would see this clearly written there. All of divine nature and all of human nature. And I believe if you also read Ephesians 2, about verses 10 through 14, you would find the same lesson there. Now, the word church, we've just seen right now, the word church actually means God's body or the body of Christ, okay, or the body of the Lord. Now, it's literally in Greek, it means it is pronounced ecclesia, okay, and it means the called out or to be called out. That's what it means from the word ek and lesia, called out, okay, called out from. So, other figures that represent this idea in the Bible are temple, house or household, flock, and nation. There are a couple of others, but these are the key ones that you'd find in many places, especially in the New Testament. Some of these that you'd find in the Old Testament are temple, tabernacle, house. In Psalms, you would find flock being used a lot of times, but nation is, well, everywhere in the Old Testament, especially as you have the symbol in the term nation of Israel. Okay, the word the called out doesn't necessarily refer to people unless by extension. It just means called out. Okay, called out from. And that's what the word body means. Now, your body is that which you have called out. But who are you? You are spirit. And I mentioned that at the beginning. I said you must understand that you are the spirit and you are the one who has the body, one body. But you are the spirit. So you are spirit. And that which you call unto yourself is your body. That is what we mean by body or church in scriptures. You are the Lord. You are Christ. You are Jesus. Okay? You are the Spirit or you're the Father. And when we come to these other symbols that I use, for example, such as temple, you are the God of the temple. Such as household or house, you are the head of the house. Such as flock, you are the shepherd of the flock. And such as nation, you are the king of the nation. These are all the symbols used to describe the same idea in scriptures. But in a sense, the meaning of the word is to be called out or the called out ones. And it actually implies those things which you as spirit have called unto yourself. In other words, those things which you believe to be true. Anything in this world that you believe to be true, you've called out of the depth of consciousness unto yourself, and it becomes the world you live in. So man lives morning, noon, and night in his body. And the body which he has is his beliefs. He can never escape it. And there is only one body that we all have. It's all the beliefs, the collection of all the beliefs that we have is the body. Now, the whole body is joined together by the head. And the head, like I've just mentioned to us right now, the head of the household is man himself. Okay? That's the head of the household. So the whole body is joined together by the head. In other words, exactly as man, the word man, from now on, the word head, the word king, or shepherd, or God, or Jesus, all mean you, but they all mean imagination. Okay? So I want us to be clear on that. It all means imagination. Now, man, being head over his own house, he calls out all that which he knows, or all that which he feels to be true, all that which he consents to as true, and all of that makes his body, or makes his own concept of self. That's another word for body. So whenever you find this word body in scriptures, church, we are still talking about your own self concept. But how much of things in this world actually make up your self concept? Everything that you believe as true make up your self concept. I love to use an example, and I'm going to use it here again. I want us to pay attention to the very meaning of that example. And this is the example. Let's suppose you have a meeting with Alice and Michael. The meeting is meant for 12 p.m. It is now 11:45 a.m. and it's just 15 minutes to the meeting. Michael is already around, but Alice is yet to be around. And then you put a call through to Alice to remind her of the meeting. You called Alice, said, Alice, where are you? We're waiting for you. Hope you would be on time for the meeting. Then Alice says, oh, I'm sorry. I am stuck in traffic. I am still far away. And I've been in this traffic for 1 hour now. I don't know when I would be able to reach there. Maybe it's going to take another hour or two, but I'll get you guys. So maybe you should carry on the meeting without me. And then when I arrive, you can tell me what you have discussed, and I would take the feedback or take the briefing. So you dropped the call, of course. Then after he dropped the call, Michael came in and said, what about Alice? Where is she? And he said, Alice is still stuck in traffic. She's not yet around. And I think it's going to take an hour or two before she arrives, because that's what she said. It's going to take an hour or two. And so we may continue the meeting without Alice. What is your own self concept in the whole thing? Your self concept or your belief is that Alice is stuck in traffic and it will take 2 hours before Alice would arrive. Oh, but you may say, it was Alice who said that to me. She's stuck in traffic. All right. Alice said it, but you chose to believe that what Alice said is true. Now, the ground and the pillar of truth, according to scriptures, is the body, is the church of God. We'll find that in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. Oh, it's actually right here. You can see it there. Oh, you can see house or household, God's family called by God's name, 1 Timothy 3, verse 15. But I cut out the rest of that passage. And now if you open to it and you read it, you'd find the statement there. Okay? 1 Timothy 3, verse 15. And it says, if I delay, you may know how one ought to behave in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, a pillar and buttress. And that would say the ground and the pillar of truth, a pillar and buttress of the truth. So there you have it. Now, you believe that to be true. And for you, it is true that Alice is stuck in traffic. Not because Alice said it, but because you were willing to believe it. You're the head. With your will or with your love for what Alice has said, you're convinced that it's true. And as a result of that, it becomes your own belief. But you may go, but Alice is actually stuck in traffic. Well, you don't know that, do you? For example, if you were in a city where there aren't holdups, never in the history of the city for the last 100 years has there been any traffic congestion, any holdup. Okay? And then you called Alice in this particular city of yours, this imaginary city. And you called Alice, and Alice is coming out of town. She doesn't know the ways of the city, right? She doesn't. So she's just coming from another city entirely. And she told you, she said, oh, she's been stuck in the city's traffic for the last 2 hours. And she thinks she would take another 2 hours before she gets to you, that maybe you could continue the meeting without her. Would you believe it? I want one or two responses in the chat here. Would you believe what Alice has said to be true? Anyone? Would you believe?
No,
Just put it in the chat. Okay. Yes, you can also say, no, you wouldn't. No, thank you. No, you wouldn't. Why didn't you believe her? Because you knew. Now you go to it. Now we get to the point. That is what our body is. That which we know so surely to be true. You knew there couldn't be any holdups in your city. You know, the rent, there never were for the last 100 years. So where did she find ours from? She definitely made it up. So you couldn't believe it. Now, if Michael walks into the room just after the call, and then you didn't say anything to Alice per se, but Michael came into the room, what would you say to Michael? You'd say, well, I think she's lying. It's either she's around and trying to play some pranks on us, or she's still not ready to be here with us. So let us proceed with the meeting. That's what you'd say. You wouldn't say, oh, she's stuck in traffic. Now you realize that what you claim of Alice as being stuck in traffic is actually your belief about Alice being stuck in traffic and not necessarily what Alice is going through. When a person tells you anything in this world and you accept it as true, it now becomes your belief. When you see a thing in this world and you accept it as final, it now becomes your belief. Whatever you know or whatever you accept in this world is your own belief. And that is what we call the body of God or the church of Christ. That which you believe, that which you know. Now, there is only one body, and this body follows you everywhere you go. It goes with you even in your unconscious state when you are asleep. It goes with you in your physical world. It goes before you, in fact, into all the events of the day. This is the body of the imagination. Now, I started at the beginning and said the head, all right, the head can hear. You have the ears. The imagination can hear. You have the ears, the inner ears. You have the inner mouth. You can speak. You have the inner eyes. You can see. You have the inner nose. You can smell. You have the inner hands. You can touch. You have the inner legs. You can walk. Any one of us who have done the love exercise could tell this. You could tell that you could walk with your imagination. You could hold, you could grip with your hands in imagination. With your imagination, you could see, right? If I ask you to imagine an elephant now, you all see it. Elephant in your room. I doubt you are in a zoo where you could see an elephant, um, or in a natural, in a reserve. Okay, but you could see it, and it's only your imagination. You could hear the sound of the elephant. You could interact with the elephant. That is all made up in your imagination. But one thing you couldn't see is your body in imagination. Try it. Just try to look at your body in imagination. Try. You wouldn't see it because it is all around you, perpetually written in the events and circumstances of what you call your life. So everything that happens to you, everything that befalls you, and everything that has gone on up until this moment, they are all that which you have called out. That's the body of the Lord. That's the church. That's the called out one. Now, that is the temple, and you dwell in it. Morning, noon, and night. But you find in scriptures a statement made in the Old Testament. David said, I would like very much to build a temple unto you, Lord. And the Lord said unto him, I cannot dwell in temples that are made of hands. I cannot dwell in temples that are made by men. For I feel heaven and earth. How could I dwell in temples that are made by my creation? What he's saying, in fact, is that he is going to make a temple for himself. And the temple he makes for himself is that which in which he would dwell. And he's talking about the church. In other words, you do not dwell in all the things that you see around you. You actually dwell in what you believe about the things you see around you. Do you all understand the statement I just made? You do not dwell in all the things that you see around you. You dwell in what you believe about the things you see around you. I just gave us an example with our Alice situation. If I believe that Alice could be stuck in traffic, in fact, if I believe that anyone can be stuck in traffic, I would believe what Alice has said. But it's not Alice's words. It is my unbelief that came before Alice's words. Now, Alice shared those words with me, and I seem to accept it as true. But in fact, I had believed that it is true that people get stuck in traffic. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't accept what Alice had said. So Alice's situation is an environment around me, but that which I believe is how I dwell on it. It's not dwelling in houses or temples made by men. It's dwelling in the beliefs that he has, and that is man for you. And that is why man is not an animal, is not a rat, is not a mammal, is the living God. But the word temple also means that it is a sacred place. And you would find when man begins to awaken, the awakened imagination, the character for him in scriptures is Jesus. All right? Now, when man begins to awaken, what you'd find him doing was it was sending them out of the temple, those who were selling and buying. We all know that story, don't we? We all know that story, right? Those who were selling and buying. And he said, my father's house is a place of prayer. You shall not turn it to a den of thieves. And that actually depicts the attitude every man must have to his own state of consciousness, because that is another word for self-concept of a body or of a church. Okay, state of consciousness. Just understand something. We're using modern words for these terminologies that in the ancient times, this was the understanding they had of it when it was written. The word imagination didn't start being used until about 13th century, I think. So what we had before then was the word spirit, okay, or the word anointed one, Messiah. So it said, you will not turn my father's house into a den of thieves. Why? Because my father's house is meant to be a place, a house of prayers. And in fact, such house of prayers that Solomon's requests were this, that whoever, no matter what they are going through in the world, they might be set upon by their enemies, and they might be set against by their friends. They might be set on the side by the ways of life. They might be set on the other side by the uncertainties of the future. But if they should come into the temple, O Lord of heaven and earth, hear their supplications and answer their prayers. That was how Solomon regarded the temple. And this temple is not that which is made by hand. So it is not a physical place you go to. I don't care if you go to temples right now, doesn't matter. That's your cup of tea if you want to. But I assure you, God is not there. He is in you, is your own imagination. And the answers to the prayers you have are not there. They lie in you turning your temple and turning the thieves out of it. The awakened imagination. Wake up, take hold of your temple, and turn the thieves out of it. In other words, turn all those things that rob you of the wish fulfilled out of your own concept of self. Suppose you want to be wealthy. Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's your desire, and it is the Father's pleasure to give you that which you seek. Now, the beliefs you have about wealth, about being rich, that actually limit you. Do you believe that you have to put in more hours of work before you're rich? Or do you believe that you have to take something or snatch something from other people before you're rich? Well, then, or do you believe that those who are rich are no longer humans? Or do you believe that you can be rich and also be kind, be rich and be human, be rich and be respectable? So it's better to not be rich. All of these beliefs are robbing you of the one thing that actually matters, the feeling that you are wealthy. Send them packing from the temple of the Lord, and you are going to receive from heaven all the blessings which you have prayed for. That's a simple lesson. And each of these figures that were used, they were given to us to depict these lessons to us in a clear manner. Take, for example, the word house or household. That means you own it. Oh, by the way, the verse that's quoted there, First Timothy 3, um, verse 15, it's not the same as the verse that's written out about it. Okay? So the verse that's written out about it is very likely Colossians 2. Okay? So I just saw that now. And but anyways, let's carry on. Now take the word house or household. God's family called by God's name. That's the word house. In other words, He's the head of it. You have to be the head. And you want to stop being in the position that you're not the head. Because if you are not, if you set aside the head, the whole thing is dismembered. It is the head that coordinates the whole thing and makes it, we can see in scriptures in the book of Colossians 2, verse 19, we can see how it is described the relationship of the head to the body and how that actually reflects the relationship that we, as imagination, as God, must have towards our beliefs, towards our concepts of this world. 2 verse 19, it says, and not holding fast to the head, from whom the whole body, nourished and knit together through its joints and ligaments, grows with a growth that is from God. Do you see that? You're the head of the body, you're the head of the household. And it is from you that the whole thing is being nourished. You stop paying attention to the things on the outside. Stop paying attention to other people's opinions. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to change them. You don't need to enforce your opinions on them either. The only thing that matters, because the word opinion actually means the same thing as body or as your beliefs. The only thing that matters is for you to have the opinions that you consciously chose. If you set aside the head, what happens to the whole body according to this passage? It dries up because the whole body is being nourished with the nourishment that leads onto the growth that comes from God, from the head, from the imagination, from the operant power. All this shows us the attitude we must have to our own self, to our own beliefs, to our own concepts. We must bring it as first and foremost in the world. The first thing to care about, the first thing to nourish. You have the word flock. And all of you would recall that parable in scriptures where Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven, which is in fact another word for beliefs, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man who has a flock of 100. And one out of a sheep went missing in the night. Then he set aside the 99 and went in search of that one until he found that one and brought it back to the fold. That's an example to show you that when you want something in this world and it seems to be missing your world, you don't see it. Well, then, set aside every other thing that you currently believe and imagine, conceive the idea that you have it, imagine it with faithfulness until you find the feeling of it's fulfilled. And that will be restored back into your world. whatever you want in your world. Maybe it is health. Okay, so you've grown all your life, you were a child, healthy, bouncing, doing well, and then you got into your early 20s, and suddenly you came across this disease, this sickness, and it's seeming to be stagnant, it's seeming to be there. So you've lost health as one of the sheep in your fold. All right, now set aside the remaining 99. Don't worry, nothing is going to happen to them. They won't be harmed, they won't be disturbed. But go in search of that one, for it knows your voice. That's another passage of scriptures now. It says, for my sheep know me, and I know them. They know me by my voice. It knows your voice. When you declare yourself, I am healthy, health knows your voice. It is a state, it is a sheep in your world. It is going to come back finding you. You're going to find it. You're going to restore it into your world. And you would assure yourself that is how you're going to be a good shepherd, keeping your flock, everything that you've been given, intact. And you are the one who give it to yourself. And if one thing goes missing, let's say it is wealth. Okay, so you got rich, and then suddenly you lost it. All right, now you had belief in the loss, and so you lost this sheep called wealth or riches in your world. Well, go in search of it. Leave the 99, leave everything else, um, friendship, joy. I'm not saying by the word leaving doesn't mean that they would go out of your word. No, it doesn't mean they would go out of your word. It means night after night, as you fell asleep, put all of those things aside from your thinking and focus your thinking on this one thing that you want to find. You want to find your riches back. Okay, well, late tonight, as if you reach, even though it seems to be lost from your world, sleep tonight as if you're rich. Set aside 99 other cares of this world and believe firmly in the idea that you're rich and you will find it to come back into your world. And then finally, that there is no flock, there is no sheep of the flock that will be missing. The awakened imagination of Jesus says that all that you've given me, I have kept, and none of them is lost. And all that comes to me, I have given to me by my Father. I know my sheep and they know me. I call them and they hear me by my voice. If you know the meaning of these words, you would realize that no one, absolutely no one in this world, is influencing or causing your world but you. In other words, all that you have experienced, all that happens to you, has been called by you. They know your voice. Well, if you don't want it anymore, start calling that which you want. So, it is all yours, and you are the head. Colossians 1 verse 27 says, to them God chose to make known how great among Gentiles are the riches of the mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. So, you read this, and we started this lesson with a discussion about the mystery, didn't we? That the whole thing is a mystery, God's mystery, and that it's not history. So, if I'm to find Christ in history, I wouldn't find him. Why? Because the story of Christ is a story of mystery, not history. It's not a story of the world, it's a story of the soul of man. Christ in you. Oh, well, if anytime you read the story of Christ, anywhere, where are you to find him? In you. Who are you to regard as Christ? Well, you yourself. For when you look within you, who are you going to find but yourself? And that self which you find is Christ. So Christ in you, the hope of glory. Your imagination, that's the hope of glory. And that's the story that's been written about. Now, let's take Christ in you, the hope of glory, and see what's written about him here. And it says, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its savior. Now, our lesson today is called what? The perfect, God's perfect body. How do you make this body, all your beliefs, how do you make it perfect? That's what we have here. It's yours. You are the head. So take charge. Take charge of your own life, of your own beliefs. That means of your own concepts of self, of your own body. It says, as the church is subject to Christ, so let wives also be subject in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives. This is not referring to, you know, husband-wife physical relationship. Remember, the whole thing is a mystery. And even though I left that out of this particular passage, if you go to that book of Ephesians chapter 5, and you read the very last verse of this chapter 5, verse 31, it says, this mystery is profound. That's verse 32 rather. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. So it's not referring all the way to husbands and wives in physical terms. It's not referring to me and my beautiful queen. Of course, you can take the wisdom of it if you want to, but that's not what he's talking about at all. It says, this is the mystery. It's of Christ and the church. So, husbands, each one of us are the husbands of the wife, and the wife is our own concept of self. I don't care whether you're a male or a female, no matter your gender, actually, this is true of you because it is Christ in you that is the hope of glory. You can't escape it, but you can delay the time you begin to take this as a serious business, as a serious, important deal of your life. But you can't escape it. Says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. And that is your purpose for your self concepts, for your beliefs, for your ideas in this world. In other words, in literal terms, what are you to do? Well, suppose that case of Alice were true, and Alice told you that call that she's stuck in traffic. Now, maybe she's actually stuck in traffic, or maybe she's not, but you believed it. And you noticed you believed it because you reacted to it. You were convinced it's so true, you could even share it with someone else. Now, you can revise that. What would be the ideal thing? The ideal thing would be that you called Alice and she said, oh, well, I had a smooth ride across town. I'm already here. I'm just opening the door. That would be an ideal thing, for example. If your wish is that no one was stuck in traffic, your ideal experience would be that she said that she had a quick ride throughout town, across town, and she's arrived. If your ideal is that you started meeting on time, what she would say is that, oh, what you'd have heard rather wouldn't be a phone call, would be that you're saying, well, now that all of us are here on time, let's get the meeting started. Is that not what you'd have said, what you'd have heard? Now, revise that your experience conforms to your ideal, whatever ideal you're choosing. As you're revising it, what are you doing? You're actually giving up your own self to redeem your own body. You're nourishing it. You're giving up yourself. So maybe you believe in the idea of being poor. You believe that before a person can be rich, they have to take 50 years and be in their 60s or in their 70s before they can become millionaires. Okay, well, now you can give that up because now you want to be rich, all right? Or you have a friend and your friend is in the 20s or in the 30s, and your friend says, well, I want to be rich. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have lots of money. Okay, now, well, give that up. Instead of telling him and convincing him with all the opinions that you have about how a person could not be rich until they're in the 60s, or how a person could not be rich in their 30s or in their 20s, there is no hope of it until they've been working on it for 50 years. Well, give all of that up and redeem this body, sprinkle it with the love, okay, that the ideal is true. Communicating with your friend, letting your friend tell you, well, I'm rich. I became a millionaire at a very young age of 30. I became a millionaire in my 20s. And I've retired and have to work for the rest of my life. You can hear that for them. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm anyone in this world. All it has to do with you is that you give up an opinion that you've cherished. Well, yes, you cherished it. That's why you call it sacrificing of yourself. But you give it up anyway. You send out all the thieves that are in the temple that have made it a den of thieves. And that is what it means to awaken, to come into the state of Jesus. For if you do not do this and you're still trying to fix things with your physical self, with your actions, with your manipulations, with your behavior, with your understanding of strategy and planning, but you leave out or you forsake the head from whom all things are nourished. We read Colossians 2, verse 19. All body are nourished with every joint and ligaments, every sinews and bones to grow in a growth that comes from God. If you leave that out and you're busy with any other mechanism or any other thinking, well, the same situation would continue to perpetuate itself in your world and you continue to die in the sin. But you can resurrect into life. You're simply not in the state of Christ if you're not operating with awakened imagination. But being awakened imagination doesn't mean that you've done X, Y, Z strenuous things, or you've had these, that, and the other complicated things happen in your life, spiritually or physically. No. All it requires is that you step up to the role, become the head. Don't wait for someone on the outside to save you, but you save yourself. Become the savior of your body. And this doesn't mean you're saving someone else from their distress. Doesn't mean you're parting with your goods. Doesn't mean you're parting um with your pleasures or with the things you want in this world that you cherish. No. It doesn't mean you're trying to be good mannered or kind hearted to someone else. No. But it means you hold on to the ideals, the truth. You make your body the ground and the pillar of truth. And make the truth you believe of everyone in your world, including yourself, that which is noble, that which is loving, that which is wonderful, that which is amazing, that which is surprisingly good, that which is exquisite, that which is treasured. But you make that your own beliefs. That is what you called upon to do. To call out the perfect body of God. And as you do that, if in this lifetime you awaken to the mystical experiences, well, then you're going to be restored into the body, which we call the Father. So you're going to see yourself as the Father. That's a mystery. The Son wakes up and realizes is the Father. When he's asleep, is the Son. Then he wakes up, he realizes is the Father. But if in this lifetime it doesn't happen, well, all that you've refined your own beliefs to be will follow you into the next life where you're going to find yourself. You might not know the transition has happened. You might not remember. Well, we don't. In fact, most of us who are here at this point of the end, coming to learn about our imagination, we've already gone through all those transitions. We've forgotten them. We needed to forget them because we couldn't dare to stand with ourselves if we didn't forget them. We didn't forget that we'd played many parts, many roles that we would probably now easily condemn, but we played all of them. So don't you condemn anything in this world. Don't condemn anyone. Rather, nourish on the ground and the pillar of truth. And raise all of it up. And find a sheep that is lost. And call out the ones that you want to take with you. Then make perfect your body. And love it. Love your own concept of self. Look at the opinions you dwell with morning and night. And change them to reflect the glory and the image of God. And that's our lesson today. So, until next week, when we're going to be having another Sunday lecture series, until then, let everyone have a wonderful, wonderful time, and bye bye. Thank you so much.